why doesn't the church see this, David? Why doesn't I mean, we don't want to be alarmists. And a lot of people just say, well, you only talk about things that are going on that are bad. I said, well, not always. There's some praise reports, and we're going to come up with some new praise reports coming up in the future. But there's lots of things that are going on that the body of Christ should be aware of, but including things like this. But it just seems like, we seem crazy sometimes. And all we're doing is taking the exact literature that they put out and talking about it here and catching up. But it just seems like it goes on deaf ears.
Well, yeah, there's none so blind as those that don't want to see. Remember how Rick Warren said, don't worry about prophecy.
That's right.
Hundreds of thousands of pastors quit teaching prophecy if they ever did teach it.
Great point. So great point.
They just started making prophecy. And then you have the Reformed branch that they're all millennial. The next event on the eschatological calendar is the millennium. It's the great white throne judgment, and that's it. Right. But so people are biblically ignorant. We've seen such a massive decline in biblical knowledge, and people actually also maturing, becoming a Christian that's mature, able to discern between right and wrong and good and evil, which is a command.
That's right.
Jesus has told us to do. In fact, he said, in Corinthians, he said, after 5 years, you should be teaching. But we got people 20 years, 30 years in the church, couldn't tell you just standard doctrines, couldn't tell you the elementary principles. So that's how far the church has fallen. And then those that are coming into supposedly a new church, we're seeing young people going into the Bill Johnson and the false prophets, false teacher NAR that are deceiving millions. Jacob and I have been talking about the false teachings of drinking at Joel's place is what we used to call it. Now it's called heavenly wine at Bill Johnson's place. I guess strong drink was too much for young people, so they had to change it to wine. But anyway, the nonsense of the false prophets there that's going on with Steve Furtick and all these guys that are just deceiving young people, and because they want to experience something, they want to have something that's alive. But that's not what the experience is, not what it's about. It's about Jesus.
That's
and
right.
Finding the one that gives that opens your eyes to the evil that these men are teaching, and few are finding a way out. So you're talking about the church has been deceived. When you turn on TBN and see millions upon millions, and that's just on American television. Go over to Africa, go overseas, you see the same deceptions everywhere. So the churches, foolish virgins are the majority, the vast majority.
To your point, David, this is interesting. You talked about Stephen Furtick. Rather than the Southern Baptist Convention having some, let's call it moral bravery and kicking Stephen Furtick out. No. Stephen Furtick has left the Southern Baptist Convention. So
women preachers, man.
Yeah. So that just even more tells you the state of things. When the people who are placed above are supposed to be watching doctrine, are supposed to be watching what you're doing, making sure you're feeding the flock, they don't have enough bravery to kick somebody like Furtick out. Furtick has to leave.
Yes.
Yeah, that's to their shame. It is.
Well, he gets to save 10% on the missions fund. Go into the church now.
What a man! I wanted to bring this up to you guys real quick. David made a great point. Rick Warren had taught for a long time. Hey, don't worry about end times prophecy. It's a diversion. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But those are the ones that have in eschatology that we would say that's wrong. That they have a amillennial or post millennial or no real eschatology in a sense of like whether it's a charismatics, whether it's extreme charismatic, extreme reform, that they have a very different eschatology. But they're the ones that we would agree with. that have a eschatology that we would agree in terms of premillennial, they're also saying, "Don't worry." They're also saying, "Don't worry." I'm talking about the pre-trib tribulation view that looks at this stuff and it says, "Well, yeah, it could be bad, but we're not going to be here to see it." This is the other problem too, David. I think the reality is, yes, we could see the ones that don't teach prophecy at all, but the ones that we agree with the most about prophecy that see similar things to what we're saying, they also are going along and saying, yeah, these things are bad, but don't worry.
Don't worry.
Yeah, and I understand not to worry. We trust Christ, but their idea of not worry is don't pay attention to it or don't even deal with it because it's not going to be anything that we have to encounter. There's not going to be this, overcoming faith that we're going to need.
Yep. Jesus scolded the Pharisees for not understanding the day that they lived in. He said, look, you guys don't know what's happening, the time of your visitation.
Yeah.
And there's going to be many, many, many that are going to miss his coming. Like we see in the Song of Solomon, they've taken off their wedding garments, their shoes are off, and then and they're not going to be ready.